Today, Chancellor Friedrich Merz welcomed the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Sweden, Ulf Kristersson, to an official reception in Berlin. Kristersson's arrival was marked with full military honours. Honour guards from the German armed forces assembled in front of the Chancellery while the national anthems of both countries were played. During the formal ceremony, the soldiers saluted, and a trumpet fanfare signalled the start of the welcoming ceremony. Chancellor Merz greeted Kristersson at the honorary entrance and escorted him past the honour guard, the military precision and carefully choreographed proceedings underscoring the significance of the visit. Following the military honours, Chancellor Merz and Prime Minister Kristersson signed the bilateral German-Swedish Innovation Partnership directly in the room where the subsequent press conference was to take place. A table was set up in the room so that the signing ceremony could seamlessly transition into the later public part of the visit. Both leaders signed the agreement, which envisages closer cooperation. The partnership aims to sustainably promote exchange between Germany and Sweden.
To invite you to the signing of the joint declaration of intent on a strategic innovation partnership for security, green and digital transition between the Federal Republic of Germany and the Kingdom of Sweden. The declaration of intent will be signed by His Excellency, the Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson, on behalf of the Kingdom of Sweden, and by the Federal Chancellor Friedrich Merz on behalf of the Federal Republic of Germany.
Time for a few questions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Prime Minister, dear Ulf. We've met more than once, really, at the Summit of the Nordics in Finland, at European Councils, at the NATO Summit. And today I have the pleasure and honor of welcoming you on your first official visit to Berlin since I took office. It is a great pleasure to have you here. And you've brought with you representatives from Sweden's political and business sphere. It was a great honor for me today to meet with Her Royal Highness the Crown Princess of Sweden, Crown Princess Victoria, who delivered a remarkable speech last year on a national holiday. Today, we decided to further develop our partnership for innovation. We're making cooperation on security and defense policy the focus of our cooperation. We're extending our cooperation to other areas, amongst them migration policy and financial policy. And we also aim to strengthen our cooperation in the fight against irregular migration and in the area of capital markets. Germany and Sweden are close partners bilaterally and as members of the European Union. And since Sweden's accession to NATO, we've also become allies in NATO, which is an illustration of the fact that Russia's attempt to divide Europe has not paid off. On the contrary, as a consequence of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, we Europeans have moved closer together. I couldn't have conceived of a day where Sweden was to join NATO one day. The war in Ukraine has triggered this development and has made it possible. Our cooperation in the area of defense industry is also to be intensified, and the defense ministers of both our countries signed the respective MOU yesterday to that effect. We both believe that the European Union has to and can make a contribution in this sector of the production of armaments. We have to therefore reduce hurdles in the single market for armaments, and we will both work towards that objective in the European Council. You will not be surprised to hear from me that we also talked about the situation in Ukraine. The biggest difference can be made by us Europeans if we reach an agreement on the use of Russian frozen assets in December at the Council. This will be the strongest lever to move Moscow to the negotiating table and to put an end to this terrible war. I would like to thank the Swedish Prime Minister for having supported that proposal I submitted at the European Council in that regard. We very much hope that the other member states of the European Council will support the proposal. For Russia has attacked Ukraine's energy infrastructure in a targeted and reckless fashion. Recently, Germany has made a contribution to the Ukraine Energy Support Fund. We've increased it to a total of 450 million euro. We are also continuously reviewing how we can further develop our support with regard to ensuring energy infrastructure and also reviewing areas in which we can provide further support. We are aware of the winter being on the doorstep. We also aim to further increase our financial support for the Ukrainian military next year by 3 billion euro. And we're doing that not only in order to help Ukraine, but also because we believe that this is in our very own security interest. In return, we expect of Ukraine that it remains a reliable partner for us. And in saying that, I mean that they take strict, uncompromising action against corruption. That is absolutely essential, I believe. And I've made myself clear in that regard twice to the President of Ukraine, personally once, and also during a telephone conversation a couple of days ago. This continues to be the basis for further progress with regard to the road towards membership in the European Union. We have also discussed the Mideast conflict. We have welcomed the mandate of the Security Council of the United Nations on the implementation of the 20-point plan on Gaza. It's important that Hamas be disarmed and that security and reconstruction is provided for Gaza. The federal government will contribute in appropriate ways to this objective. We need to see that a stable peace is being established for Israelis and Palestinians in the Middle East, in where Israel no longer continues to be a foreign body but becomes a partner. Ladies and gentlemen, strengthening Europe's competitiveness continues to be our priority. Only an economically strong European Union will be able to hold its own as a geopolitical actor and to defend its interests and values. We need a more flexible regulation and have expressed that clearly. We want to give more leeway to companies and a swift and pragmatic implementation that strengthens opportunities for growth. I'd also like to mention that we've also discussed the multi-annual financial framework today, which places a stress on enhancing the competitiveness of industry in Europe. We will have to discuss this subject soon. We also, last but not least, discussed migration. For us, it is clear that irregular migration is a challenge for Europe as a whole. Germany has taken action at many levels in order to reduce the applications for asylums. We've been successful in that regard, but it is not sufficient. We have to pursue that path together at Europe's level. Well, ladies and gentlemen, these are the most important points we've discussed today, as I see it. Again, I'd like to say how pleased I am to have had the pleasure to welcome you to Berlin today. We will continue to cooperate closely as members of the European Union. Germany and the North have, by tradition, a very good relationship, and Germany and Sweden have been close partners in many different respects. I think there are no problems at the bilateral level. I'd say on the contrary, we have common projects as members of the European Union that we've pursued. We've discussed about that in great detail. Again, dear Ulf, thank you. Thank you for this close partnership with Germany and also at this personal level between you and I. I'm pleased about this being such a successful cooperation, and let us continue in this vein.
Thank you so much, Herr Bundeskanzler, dear Friedrich. Thank you very much for hosting us here in Berlin today. And I also had the privilege of giving a brief speech at the Berlin Security Conference this morning. I'm really happy to be back in Berlin. For Sweden, Germany is really a very strong partner and a very reliable friend in so many different ways. Nowadays, also an excellent ally, not least in the Baltic Sea region and, of course, in all the support for Ukraine. We have a very solid common base with close economic and industrial and political and cultural ties. Germany, everybody doesn't know that, is Sweden's largest trading partner, but also the largest foreign employer in Sweden, with some 98,000 Swedes working in successful German companies. The first time we actually met here in Berlin was the day after the German general election. I was on my way from Rome and I called Friedrich and asked, if you think this good election result will lead you to form the next German government, I'll make a stop in Berlin on my way home, if you don't mind. And you answered, welcome. And today we meet in times of deep concern for the European security with Russia's war raging against Ukraine. It is obvious that we as countries and as the EU and as NATO must prepare ourselves for a long-term confrontation with Russia. And that's also why friends and partners become even more important in this task. Sweden's partnership with Germany is, as everybody here knows, long-standing, based on geography, values, history, and shared policy priorities of today. We really look forward to engaging further in this close cooperation with today's agreement. And to this end, we have signed an agreement to extend the existing partnership to also include cooperation in some of the areas most crucial for security and prosperity: foreign and security policy, obviously, capital markets, international development cooperation, and, as you mentioned, migration. In already existing areas of the partnership, such as defense, space, and digital transition, we have decided to deepen this cooperation. An expression of this is the Memorandum of Understanding that Sweden's and Germany's defense ministers signed yesterday. It will allow for more intense cooperation in capability development and the increasingly important defense industry. And that was also a reason why I and the Crown Princess met so many successful German and Swedish defense companies today at the conference. In parallel to joint activities within the Innovation Partnership, we will continue to work together in the European Union, in NATO, and around the Baltic Sea. I would like to thank the Bundeskanzler for Germany's steadfast and very solid and dedicated support for Ukraine. That support, be it military, humanitarian, economic, or political, need to increase if we are to stop the ongoing Russian war of aggression. And we also, as we both have done, need to speak, sometimes very bluntly, with our friends in Ukraine. Few countries know as well as ours that more partners now need to step up their support as well. And finally, I'd like to express my appreciation for your very hands-on leadership style. We both lead our own countries through difficult times, but both of us also co-lead the European response to difficult times. Of course, it happens that friends differ on details, but when it comes to big economic, financial, geopolitical, and industrial landmark decisions, we tend to unite on the same page. Thank you so much. Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you. Dagens Nyheter. Chancellor, as leader of the opposition, you called several times that Germany was to deliver Taurus to Ukraine. Taurus happens to be a Swedish-German project. Until now, you have not delivered Taurus to Ukraine. Could you please explain to our Swedish leaders why you haven't done so?
What would it mean for Ukraine if the country gained greater access to long-distance missiles as the Taurus system? Thank you very much.
Wir sind in den letzten Monaten
Over the last few months, we've been engaging with the Ukrainian government intensively with regard to implementing projects with the aim of long-range fire, as is the technical protective language. We agreed that we were not going to discuss details in public. We believe that there ought to be a certain level of uncertainty with an eye to the Russian party to the conflict as far as our kind of support to Ukraine is concerned. I would like to limit myself to saying we're doing what we can to provide weapon systems to Ukraine that have the respective range, and we will continue to do so in the coming weeks and months to the extent necessary, all the way down to the production of such weapon system in Ukraine itself.
Was it the same, basically the same question for, sorry,
Ukraine, if they gain greater access to long-distance missiles like the Taurus system?
Obviously, I think two things are worth mentioning. The first thing, that every country needs to make their own decisions on what to deploy, what contributions to be made in terms of money and, of course, in terms of military equipment. In the same way, I expect other countries to respect what we are doing. Of course, we respect other countries' decisions. In a general sense, you can always say that Ukraine can honestly make use out of more or less everything, and they are not shy in their in their demands for help for very good reasons. So I fully understand that they always ask us for delivering even more, and they obviously, they also understand that sometimes it is not possible for different reasons. So I don't have any other views on that.
Yeah, Hans von der Burchert from
Politico. Chancellor, from long-range fire to air defense, also staying with Ukraine, you mentioned the 3 billion. Recently, we've seen a terrible attack on the west of Ukraine. Do you see the chance of effectively supporting and enhancing air defense for Ukraine at short notice? We've also received reports that there was to be a 28-point peace plan by the Americans. Apparently, the Russian side was expressing a sense of openness towards that proposal. Have you heard more about those proposals? What is your assessment? Did you talk about this over dinner last night?
On more support for Ukraine in the air defense sector. Do you see any possibilities from your side? And if I may ask, there is discussion on how to move forward with the German, French, Spanish FCAS fighter project, and also question, well, do you see a possibility for Saab and Airbus to work together? Thank you.
You first.
Well, I understood your question twofold. One is to deploy even more air defense to Ukraine, and I think what we have done so far, with respect for increasing everything, no doubt about that, we decided, as a part of the informally known as the F-16 group, we decided that the best contribution Sweden could do at that time, and is ongoing right now, was actually to deploy air surveillance aircrafts that are very compatible to the F-16 system to increase the capacity of those fighter jets. So that is the immediate answer. And then, as everybody knows, we discuss also the long-term possibilities of cooperating on the Gripen fighter system. Your second question was on Saab and Airbus. Well, basically, we promote every kind of cooperation and has done so for a long time. You know, basically, the Swedish lesson learned is that a pretty small country with big corporations always need to cooperate also with other countries. But normally we do not. We don't give political recommendations on what different companies, the Swedish companies, should engage with. I fully trust their own decision-making capacity on that.
Ich will kurz Stellung nehmen zu dem.
Briefly, as far as the recent events during the night and the days in Ukraine, we've seen a massive increase in Russian attacks on infrastructure in Ukraine, far into the western parts of Ukraine. It's a war of terror, I'd be tempted to say, terrorist war, attacks against Ukrainian infrastructure with the objective of damaging it to a massive extent. And winter is on the doorstep, as I said. We've received a report by our Minister of Economics who visited Kyiv and Ukraine and reported back that infrastructure had been massively damaged by these attacks. This is no longer a justification of attacking military targets, but it is a terror regime against the population of the country. We want to do what we can to improve air defense of Ukraine. I made that reference to the efforts of the Group of Five and of the E3. We are sounding out all possibilities in these various formats. We also actively support air defense in Ukraine. By the way, we are also engaging with the American administration on a daily basis, in close touch with them. Our advisors are engaging with their counterparts, as do the foreign ministers and the foreign policy advisors, with the possibility of agreeing a common plan. Right now, I cannot say whether this is going to bring about a result at short notice, but the government is working 24 hours around the clock, 7 days a week, in close touch with the American administration.
Pontus Ahlqvist from
Pontus Ahlqvist, TRT. Ukraine urgently needs assistance from Europe if it is to survive militarily in the coming years. In less than a month, the next EU summit meeting will take place. You favor the use of frozen Russian assets to finance a loan to Ukraine. How can you ensure that you get your colleagues on board?
Did you get a translation? Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, we have been engaging in that discussion. As I said at the last council, we discussed this subject matter. It will again be on the agenda at the next council meeting. I am in close touch with my colleagues of the European Council, as has Ulf. We both talked about this. We both believe that we ought to use these frozen assets, but we do have a little bit of convincing as far as that is concerned. I am aware of the reserves and the reservations expressed by the Belgian presidency. We're working hard to clear any uncertainty, to provide assurances or joint guarantees so as to end up in a position where we can actually use these funds. We don't want to confiscate them. We want to use them as a security for a loan. And that loan could then provide sufficient material and armaments to Ukraine for a long period of time. We are working on this. I am talking to my counterparts about this, and I'm working with the 18th of December at the back of my mind. That is the date of the next European Council, the final council of this year, and I very much hope that we will be able to reach an agreement then.
Yeah, and I could easily just echo what the Chancellor just said, that we are working intensively with this question. I'm so happy that we are on the same page on this. It is very important in terms of content, but also in terms of symbols. So I think the Belgian government, they raised a series of very legitimate questions, and they deserve serious answers. And my impression is that these answers are now being provided. So I do hope that we will be able to make a decision on the next European Council. We had the first discussion on the informal meeting in Copenhagen, and then at the last formal meeting, and then I hope we can finally make a decision. But as always in the European Union, you don't have the decision made until the decisions are made. But we share the same priority of this matter. Thanks.
Okay, vielen Dank.
Thank you so much.
Herr Bundeskanzler, eine Frage noch.
One question, if I may, Chancellor. One final question, Chancellor. Friday, you will be leaving for the G20 summit. We've had a few cancellations. The United States will be boycotting the summit. The presidents of Russia and China will not attend. What results do you expect against this backdrop of cancellations? You will also probably meet the president of Brazil, Mr. Lula. He will probably approach you with regard to the statement you made and the response you triggered regarding your statement concerning Belém as a city. What will you say to him? Will you put things right, or do you deplore the fact that you've made that statement? I look forward to another encounter with President Lula in Belém. We had a very good personal exchange of views. This afternoon, the Minister of Environment, Carsten Schneider, met with President Lula, and I asked him to convey my heartfelt regards to President Lula. I believe we will have another good bilateral when I am in South Africa, and it will not be negatively affected by what my statement. I said Germany is one of the most beautiful countries in the world, and I trust that Mr. Lula will be able to accept that as a statement. I look forward to being in South Africa and hope that we will reach joint agreements, common agreements, against the backdrop of cancellations and some opposition expressed with regard to the statement that is planned or the communique that is planned. I am aware of that discussion, but I look forward to meeting President Ramaphosa. We will have, in the wake of the G20 meeting, an EU-Africa summit in Angola, and I will use that opportunity to engage in a more in-depth dialogue with the African countries. From the point of view of the European Union and the German point of view, we have a great interest in further strengthening our ties with African countries, cooperating well with these countries. The African countries are looking for partners, and regardless of how many cancellations will come in, I will be traveling to Johannesburg, engage in talks there, and I will also continue then to attend the EU-Africa summit in Angola. And I expect we will be returning with good results. Thank you.